really delighted to be here today, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the honor of being asked to present to you today on a subject which is not only really important to the world, but it's really important to me as well. I've spent over 30 years addressing the challenges of water around the world. I've been fortunate to live and work around the world, but really the water challenge is as real today as it was all those years ago. So I'm Bryan Harvey, and I work for Jacobs. And whilst I have worked around the world, I'm living here in Riyadh at the moment and have been for the last 3 years, bringing solutions to the Vision 2030 projects, and really delighted to be with you today. So the presentation I'll be giving is really my vision on what I believe is the route to a water secure future, and that's around foundations, founded on partnership between governments, private sector, communities of the world, and that's what I'll try and bring to life today over the next 20 minutes or so. So to start things off, look at this basic diagram, and I'm sure you've all seen this many times before. On the left, water demand. On the right, water supply. And water demand, as you can see here, is really dominated by the agricultural industry. Industry brings in lots of demand as well, and domestic, what we drink and use in our houses every single day. And that demand is something which is growing and will increase. And I'll come back to that in a short while. Water supply, as you know, is dominated by surface water in many parts of the world, groundwater, but also increasingly now it's supplied by good technology around desalination and also water reuse. But whilst these diagrams are very simple, it's the complexity of the detail behind these diagrams, which really makes the water industry so fascinating, but also creates so much opportunity for us all. And I believe the best way to bring together these complexities and solve these challenges of supply and demand is through partnership. So if I may, I'll take a bit of a history step back now over the last 200 years, just to illustrate how things have evolved and changed over this period of time. And I'm focusing here on global water, as I did on the last slide, and I'll narrow down a bit into some regional examples and some regional thoughts later on. So in the pre-1800s, so over 200 years ago, surface water was right at the heart of our water supply, with wells and shallow groundwater. And that evolved then into the 1800s with urban water, more urban areas, more people moving into cities, and that created more urban water solutions. In the early 1900s, groundwater abstraction, deeper groundwater abstraction, became more and more common, and with that, more water treatment as well. The technologies and the science was starting to catch up with the demands of the day. The 1950s saw the first desalination plants come into the market, and really those deep aquifer sources of water, which really unlocked new supplies and delayed many of the challenges for many years. The 70s, we saw more environmental awareness, more groundwater depletion. We became aware that by just extracting all the time from the groundwater sources, we're starting to develop a problem. And then the next wave, the more efficient wave of desalination plants started to evolve. But the water resource management techniques, the ones that we started in the 90s, those are the ones which started to unlock the true solutions, I believe, those all-encompassing solutions to world water. Water reuse, water recycling started to come onto the scene, and that unlocked a new wave of solution again. How do we keep water in the water cycle regardless of its prior use? And then on to the 2010s. Really the smart technologies came into play, and then resilient infrastructure, AI, Groundwater and surface water have been with us for many, many, many centuries, but they're becoming more risky with depletion of groundwater, with climate variance on surface water. And desalination, whilst it started off as a risky technology, I think now the world's becoming much more comfortable. And then most recently, reuse. Again, lots of initial challenges in terms of cultural acceptance and the like, but now becoming much more common across the world. So with that simple picture, I'll now look at this complexity, because one of the common features of all of that last 200 years has been the complexity change. And that complexity is likely to increase over the future, because there's predicted further population growth. Hopefully, the world will continue to have really strong economic development, and therefore more industry and more agricultural use of water will prevail and continue. Urbanization, I'm sure, will continue as well, as more and more people are attracted to work and lives within the cities. And if all predictions are held true, then the weather patterns and evaporation rates will continue to evolve. So that journey of challenge that I described over the last 200 years will most definitely continue with time into the future. Great. So I mentioned earlier the partnerships words and touched very briefly on why that's so important to me. But really the world of water has evolved over time to meet needs. And those partnerships that have evolved to meet those needs are very regionally focused. So whilst my 200-year review of the world of water evolution has really highlighted those big macro changes, I'm now going to start zooming in onto some of those regional partnerships, which have been so important to the evolution of the world of water. So, for example, if there's been energy scarce areas of the world, they've tended to focus on energy efficiency in the water production cycles. For areas of the world where there's real water scarcity, they've tended to focus on development of new technologies and new ways of creating water. And then in locations where there's been capital shortage or dollar amount shortages, they're focused on new ways of investment and unlocking those new funding streams into water. So the next few slides, I'm just going to zoom in on some of those partnership areas, which give me a lot of confidence there's a lot of great things happening, and really important that we keep those journeys of partnerships developing at both a regional level, but also at a global level. So I'm going to start now with the efficiency partnership, and lots of bright colors on this big screen with this one. And there's two areas of efficiency I'll start focusing on here. One is the operational efficiency, and I think you'll agree some of the work that's been going on in Denmark in recent times with wastewater and treatment plants, which our company's been involved with in the past as well, really has started to push the boundaries of sustainable water treatment by not only generating the clean water and that water we can use, but also generating surplus energy, utilizing the resources created through the wastewater production techniques into new nutrients use, chemicals, etc., etc. So a real level of efficiency that's been achieved there. The next efficiency I'll focus on is around construction efficiency, and I take these examples from real life examples in the UK, where and these three pie charts at the bottom of the slide there illustrate three elements of a water pipeline project. So the first on the left is pipeline crossing, so bridges effectively. Middle one is pump stations, and then the far right pipelines. And what the different color codes show is in green it's what can be standardized, and in yellow was what required bespoke design solutions. And the interesting thing here, if you zoom across all of them, is that about 75% of what we produce in the water sector for this pipeline project can easily be standardized and the like. And that brings us enormous advantage in the design process, because it starts to operate or bring in cloning opportunities, standardization, very, very much simplified design. During construction, it allows greater economies of scale. Rather than buying bespoke parts, we can buy en masse. And then obviously in operation and maintenance, we can also then bring efficiency because it becomes much more familiar for operators to use a particular type of pump or a particular type of valve and making those replacements. So now all of those are important, but I think that the final point on this slide I'd like to make is that the importance of whole system efficiency, because any one of these points, be that operational efficiency, construction efficiency, can exist, but it can be so easily lost, either through non-revenue water or through some other inefficiencies elsewhere within the distribution system. So it's really important that we not just think about those individual component parts of efficiency, but also the whole system-wide efficiency as well. So the next area of partnership I'm going to briefly focus on is that of technology partnerships. And I'll focus on three areas. And going back, if you remember back to that 200-year slide I had earlier, there are these three areas that are right at the heart of the water technologies and water growth over that two-century period. But the big challenge is, how do we protect the groundwater? How do we scale up desalination? How do we scale up reuse? Because that's right at the heart of dirty water, and then treat it to very, very high standards of quality, and then pump that water back into the aquifers of the world, where it's then held for many decades before it's then taken back into circulation again. That's the more sort of distant view of groundwater, and very much linked to the third point here of reuse. So really important technology, really powerful techniques, but one that we now have a way forward, and both in Western Australia and in Orange County in the US, in California, there's really powerful examples there of which give us great confidence. The next area is around desalination, and where better place to look than here in the Kingdom, where there's enormous capacity being developed to meet the future demands of the Kingdom and all it entails. Certainly, living in Riyadh, and are very aware that desalination is such an important part of the water supply to my house every single day. But here in the Kingdom, as well as capacity, has really been driving new approaches and techniques. Obviously, the first one being from thermal to the RO type techniques, but increasing use of renewable technologies as well. And both the examples there I share. The top one there, Rabib, in the 600,000 cubic meters a day capacity, is an incredible capacity, which proves that desalination works at scale. And then the second example there I showed, Jubail, is very much highlighting the potential that comes from energy efficiency and those new renewable sources, be that solar or wind, that are with us today. So no question in my mind that there's a scalable solution here for desalination wherever it's needed in the world. And the last area I'll focus on is reuse. I'll give an example here in Singapore, which has, I think, been shining the light for many years in terms of the multi-taps, the 4 taps approach, rainwater harvesting, imported water by pipelines from Malaysia, and then new water, which is the reuse production water. Combine that with desalination, they've got a very much improved water supply situation, one that's given them enormous economic growth over the last 50 years or so. So we've got groundwater solutions, albeit in very few locations of the world. We've got confidence that desalination can be scaled up, and we've got confidence that reuse now works and is an integral part in some nations of the world. So I think the technology partnerships have proved themselves, and I think just looking around the conference over the last day just shows how much new technology and how many new bright ideas are there coming to the market and bringing solutions, further solutions to us all across the water world. So the last area of partnership I'd like to focus on is investment partnership. And here I'll go to a project in the UK which is just recently completed and is the Tideway project. And this is the project beneath the River Thames, which collects excessive water from the drains and the wastewater pipes of London and prevents it falling into the River Thames. So at its heart, it's an environmental cleanup project, but really it's a wastewater collection system which takes water along a 24-kilometre tunnel into a wastewater treatment plant to the east of London. Now, the reason I mention this is not only is it an incredible engineering project, but my mind has started to bring different funding sources together. Now, at the moment, we're segmenting that investment, and on occasion, I think we're probably not optimizing the investment spread across both the public and private sector funding sources. The philosophy, I believe, in Tideway was it changed that dynamic, moving it from segmented investment to one of seed funding coming from the public sector, if I take this to its most simplest form, which then de-risked the project for private sector investors to come in and make a difference and make this project viable. So with the Tideway project specifically, it was the first of kind project, deepest tunnel ever in the London, below the tubes, below the River Thames, and below many billions of assets above ground. And that risk had to be de-risked, proof of concept had to be delivered, and then the funding mechanisms really started to flow. And the ultimate test here is not just that the project was built, but it also drove an enormous saving for the customers of London, in excess of 60–70% saving on the customer bill from that originally predicted before this new way of funding advances happened. So this is a project which I've tracked for many years, and it was so good to see Andy Mitchell, the CEO, and others there opening that project. Not just the engineering marvel, as I say, but on meeting those new investment solutions that I believe the water world needs. So to draw this conclusion, thanks again for having me here today. I hope this has shown some light, not only on the most complex issues of supply and demand, which are like to become more complex, but for me, hopefully, starting to share real confidence and optimism that the technology solutions are absolutely there, and those efficiency partnerships, those technology partnerships which are shared around the world. Now, if we can scale them up and connect different parts of the world together, we can all learn from each other. But also to how important those global solutions can include the investment solutions as well. I'm sure there are many more innovative investment solutions out there, but the one I presented today, we now have confidence that it's not only delivered the solution for London, but it's also got so much potential anywhere else in the world that I look. So with that, I'll draw it to a close. Thank you so much for having me once again. It's been a real honor, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.